This is Savage Tales of the 1980s. This is volume 3 of the Lost Marvels series that Fantagraphics has been publishing. This comes out February 17th. And normally I don't like to look back. Like, I'm not a big nostalgia guy. Like, if something's old but it's still good, like I still love Star Trek, the original series, because the stories are still great. For the most part, most of the episodes, the writing is still great. I enjoy that. So I'm going to talk about the book physically. I'm going to talk about my experience with it, some of the things that I really enjoyed, and hopefully you'll consider at least looking at it, if not buying it. I think it's a interesting artifact. So as I said, I'm not a nostalgia guy, but this did interest me because in the 1980s, for as much crap that Jim Shooter got, and I understand why he became a pariah and he's hated by so many industry professionals, but at the same time, he did a lot of things that were interesting for the industry. He tried to do new things all the time. I'm sure he was trying to make a buck, but at the same time, he was trying to do different things. And one thing that he wanted to do was, hey, let's have a magazine-sized comic on the shelves like Savage Sword of Conan, using Marvel talent, but not being about superheroes. And the one unifying theme with this series, and it lasted 8 issues over 13 months, is that the unifying theme is violence. It's either a bank robbery, or set in the Crusades, or set in World War One, World War Two, some war, set in the dystopian future. There's always this central theme of it being either in a violent setting, or people committing violence, or people being victims of violence. And you would think that that would be redundant, but it's not, because they got a lot of different creators that have their take on it, and you have a lot of interesting stories. It's actually a pretty good anthology. Physically, the book is about 540 pages, absolutely wonderfully made. And I just want to compare it to a Marvel omnibus, that I have one here. And the reason I wanted to point it out is that, as you can see, the Marvel Fanfare book is shorter and not as wide as the Fantagraphics book. And the reason I point that out is that one of the big complaints that you have with these large books, at least Marvel's, is that you have gutter loss. But because this book is wider, and there's more space here in the border between the panels, giving, you can actually, the way it's published, you can actually spread this out. But more importantly, there's just a little bit of extra width, so you don't have that gutter loss where you would have that here, because maybe it's the way it's bound, but also giving a little bit of that little bit of space on either side would help that problem. Most of this is not made by superhero people. Some cases it is. It's an interesting, eclectic combination of talent. The book, and I have to tell you, as time goes by, I really, really appreciate Fantagraphics, their ability to consistently publish really nice looking books. So what they start here is the table of contents. You've got these arrows that kind of guide you along. Goes through every issue, shows the cover, gives credits to everything that was done. There's an introduction by Dr. Michael Dean with Larry Hama. And usually most of these introductions, I don't know if some people just write to write them because they want to get published somewhere. This is actually a very interesting, short 4-page introduction, but it's really worth reading. And each issue is presented like this, where this is the cover. This is actually by Mike Golden. This is a painted cover. And I just want to point this out, this corner box. It looks familiar, right? It said that this was 2 years before Watchmen was published. Not saying anybody stole anything. I'm just saying it's a hell of a coincidence. Now, I'm not going to go through every single story and every single issue, but I do want to point out some really interesting things and maybe some just insights that I got. The first story is Fifth to the First. This is by Doug Murray and Michael Golden. This was the team that started off on the initial run of the Nam. Then this is a Nam story. There's one in this issue and there's one in a subsequent issue of this Savage Tales. It's sort of like the Nam tryout. And here you can really see this really gorgeous Michael Golden art. I mean, people were not drawing like this for the most part in the 1980s. This is something that like is more like a, I don't know, Jim Lee type of thing that you would see like in the late 80s, early 90s. Guys were just not drawing like this, but with much better storytelling. No offense, Jim Lee is not a storyteller. This is a serialized story that lasted 4 issues. I don't think it ended, but this was drawn by Herb Trimpe, and Herb Trimpe is known as a Hulk guy and a superhero guy. And he has a certain style when it comes to superheroes, but this is just completely different. Just really wonderful cartooning and storytelling. And it's kind of interesting just seeing him do art, maybe the way he would really like to do it, but just to do something in a totally different style and really pull it off well. Different camera angles, close-ups, just artistically, really good stuff. And I will say that some of this is from the 80s, so some of it is not written the way you would see a comic written now, but it's not as wordy and verbose as like Roy Thomas or Chris Claremont comics back in the day. This story is called Avenger. It's drawn by John Severin. I think John Severin, Colin Blanchett, who publishes Canon and Die With Your Mask On and the Learning the Canon channel on YouTube, he's the one that got me into John Severin, really. And John Severin was famous in the 50s and 60s doing Westerns. Just really beautiful cartooning. You don't see this kind of work anymore. This is just not the style. But all this detail, this quality of work is just amazing. I just love this. So I just wanted to point out, because John Severin, I think, has a story in every issue. And so they're just some guys I've never heard of who maybe didn't make their mark in comics well. Other guys that did. So that was like the first issue, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought the first issue was pretty good. Just really good stuff. This cover is by Joe Jusko. And Joe Jusko is a name from the 80s and 90s. But before there was Alex Ross, there was Joe Jusko. And Joe Jusko did these great painted covers on Marvel superhero comics all the time. Also here's the other Michael Golden story from the Nam. Just really stellar artwork. Just really ahead of his time. This is an early James O'Barr story. This is pre The Crow. It's a wordless 4-issue story. Just kind of an interesting insight. They also include the front pieces, and this is by Henry Bismuth, and I've never heard of him, but this is glorious. I fell in love with just this one piece. Another story by, this is actually features a story written by Dennis O'Neil when he did his, I think, brief Marvel interlude before he went back to DC. It's a fun story. And then here you have a story drawn by Ken Stacey and written by Chuck Dixon. And in my opinion, the stories got better. They started staying away. They got away from the serialized stories, and at some points I think just cut them off without resolving them fully, which is a shame. But this is a story here drawn by John Buscema. Western, great Western story. I'm not a huge fan of Westerns, but when the Westerns are done right, I really enjoy them. Just good stuff. And more John Severin. And you can just tell, this is just gorgeous work. More Joe Jusko for another cover. And yes, it is a man with a child, and he is a bounty hunter and actually uses his child as part of his operation. This is 1980s. This front piece is done by an artist named Gary Quapis. Just really great old school type of work. Just really enjoy this. They include the letters pages, as you can see. More John Severin. Just old school, great stuff. that nobody does anymore. Later issues included stories by Sam Glanzman. And Sam Glanzman, if you're not familiar, is a cartoonist who served in the Pacific Theater in World War II. And he wrote a ton of comics based on his personal experiences and experiences by other soldiers serving in the Pacific. And these are all great stories. He's not a person that's all Rambo, glorifying war. He talks about the horrors of war a lot, and he's quite honest about it. Just really excellent work. There's so much work by him out there. He was a national treasure. Just really great stuff. Just really good cartooning. Again, a style and era that you don't see anymore. And I can sound like an old man and say, oh, this is an old-fashioned stuff. But you know what? If you look at those 8-ball comics, and you look at Love and Rockets, and you look at early Adrian Tomita, those are great comics. Nobody draws like that either. I would also be remiss if I didn't point out that there were about 2, maybe 3 stories. There's one in the first issue drawn by famous cartoonist Gray Morrow. Old school name, great cartooning. Just really enjoyed this. Just good stuff. These are people that really took the classical approach to drawing that was in vogue at the time. And that's basically it. I just wanted to show some of the comic, not do page by page because there's over 500 pages. It'd be too long, it'd be kind of boring. But this book is really well put together, really solid, really well made. I really appreciate the choice of using this high quality matte paper. A lot of times with matte paper, the contrast isn't as good, but they did a really great job here reproducing this and getting good contrast, and the blacks being black, the whites being white. A lot of times you don't see that with matte paper. That's why a lot of times sometimes with black and white, I appreciate the glossy paper, but Fantagraphics did a spectacular job with this book. My final verdict is that I'm glad I got this. This was like on my short list of comics to pre-order. I didn't. I thought I would like it, but I wasn't sure. It is $65, so that was one consideration because of a lot of other books coming out in February that I have to buy that I committed to. But having said all that, I'm glad I got a chance to read it, but I should have had this on my pull list. Just a wonderful series. I'm going to look for more of the Lost Marvels, see what they have next. Like I said, I'm not a big nostalgia guy. I like to move forward. You can appreciate some of the past, but you got to move forward or you just get stuck in the mud, stuck in your old ways. But this was a nice nostalgia trip. I mean, I had never read these stories, so it wasn't like I was going back to something familiar, but it was more of a nostalgia of a style, an ethos, a vibe that was prevalent then of high quality work. So I recommend this, and at least if if anything I've shown you would be of interest to you, or if you're a cartoonist and you can appreciate really good classic style of drawing, definitely want to check this out. Thanks.